Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jade, and this is How to App on iOS. And today we are interviewing Michael Tyson from A Tasty Pixel, the developer of not only Audiobus but Loopy Pro. We're going to kick off with a little bit of a taste of what Loopy Pro is all about, so enjoy.
Hi, I'm Michael, the developer of Loopy and Audiobus, and this is a first look at Loopy Pro. At its heart, this is a professional live looper and sampler for iPad and iPhone, and shortly for the Mac too. It's designed from the ground up to be easy to use, but also entirely customizable, so you can build exactly the rig you need. As a live looper, it can be set up to work however you do. There are features like count in and count out recording or playback, or totally free recording with quantization, or not. There's retrospective recording, so you can lock in the last thing you played without starting record in advance. There's audio threshold record start for hands-free recording, and built-in effect tail handling for smoothly capturing the end of a reverb or a natural acoustic decay. And you can group tracks so that they play and stop together, or mutually exclusively with each other or other groups, for really flexible sectioning. Loopy Pro works great on its own, but it also has deep support for external audio interfaces and MIDI controllers, including devices like the Launchpad, which have LED feedback and touch sensitivity. So you can use it on screen, or stick it on an iPad out of the way, plugged into an audio interface, and control it just with a MIDI controller, like the FCB 1010, a Launchpad, or whatever works best for you. Loopy Pro's canvas is fully customizable. Hold on, this is about to get deep. You can add as many loops or one-shots as you like, and group them together into sections that'll play and stop together, or one at a time. You can also group loops or one-shots by color, and then assign a configuration for each. You can apply effects to specific colors, send different colors to different output channels, or bring in different audio sources to different colors. And you can specify different playback or recording behaviors for each color. You can also add widgets to the canvas in the form of buttons, sliders, dials, and other controls. Widgets are powerful building blocks that you can program and add virtually unlimited control and extended functionality to Loopy Pro. You can do almost anything with widgets. You can play and stop an arbitrary selection of tracks, adjust levels for a track group, manipulate effect parameters, possibly with a ramp, multiply or divide track lengths, clear or merge tracks, adjust audio sources. You can undo and redo, load a project. There's even a slicer control which lets you play bits of a loop as one-shots, divided up by the transients. And there'll be lots more like that to come in the future, like scratch pads and granular sample scrubbers. You can also create different scenes, each with its own canvas, for different song sections or different parts of a set. Loopy Pro works with all of your audio units, effects, instruments, and sequences and other MIDI generators. You can assign effects to individual audio sources which get recorded in, or you can apply effects to the outputs of individual groups of tracks. And you can make your own effect chains with both built-in or audio unit effects, with features like splitting the signal by frequency or volume and applying different effects to each path. As well as being a live looper and sampler, Loopy Pro has DAW-like capabilities with a fully featured multi-track sequencer interface. You can record performances or key them in manually and then play them back or export them to a multi-track format. And because it's a live looper, you can also prepare a sequence, then clear out all of the audio, and Loopy will trigger recording and playback according to your sequence for a fully automated performance. That's it for this first look at Loopy Pro. Coming next is a closer look at Loopy's infinitely flexible widget system. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is How to App on iOS. I hope you are all doing well. It is early morning here in Australia, in Melbourne, Friday morning, and I'm sure I'm having a coffee right now out of my Studio Live Today mug, and I hope you're having a tasty beverage, whatever it is, wherever you are in the world. Who the hell am I? Well, my name is Jade, and I am a musician. there I am right there. I do this show every day where I look at music, app creation, all this kind of stuff, things that help you get the best out of your music using iOS for the most part. Yeah. And you know what? I happen to be trans. So don't hold that against me because it's your problem. So today I'm really excited because not only do I have an amazing developer on the show who I'm super stoked to have on, this is the first show that is being sponsored by DistroKid going forth for the year 2022, where once a month, one of these interviews will be sponsored by DistroKid. So thank you very much for DistroKid for jumping on board. There is a link right above there, distrokid.com/VIP/Jade Starr, and you can get 7% off when you sign up to release your unlimited music each year. How cool is that? Thank you very much, Thomas Christ, for putting a link in the chat. So let's get down to it. Today, I have somebody on the show who, for me, as somebody who picked up my first iPad when the first one dropped, and from that very moment went, you know what, I'm going to ditch using PCs forever. I see the potential in this piece of glass, and that was 2012, back when the naysayers were saying, it's a consumption device, you can only watch videos on it. No, I refuse to believe it. And this particular person came along and released something onto the App Store called Audiobus, which absolutely changed the way we were able to communicate between our music apps. And it really opened the door for me to make music, and I'm sure many of you. Not only did he change the game once, but twice now with the release of his brand new app, Loopy Pro, which I've already featured on this channel. So without further ado, I want to bring into the chat from, funnily enough, Melbourne as well, Australia. It's so cool to have an Aussie on the show. Very proud. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, from a tasty pixel, the one and only Michael Tyson. Welcome to the show, my friend. I hope you are doing well this morning.
Good morning, Jade. Good morning, neighbor. I am doing well. Yeah, you're very kind. All those things that you said about me.
Well, it is true. I'm going to carry on with that straight off the bat.
Thank you.
When I was making music, right, it was so hard back in the day because all I got to use was the main way I would make music with no problems was to jailbreak my iOS device. Because jailbreaking was the way to actually share files between apps and get them to kind of sort of talk to each other and add features that Apple refused to add.
Yeah, it's amazing how far we've come.
Absolutely. And it's funny too, because Apple tried their hardest during those days to stamp out jailbreaking so hard, but yet they stole all of our tweaks at every update they could.
Yeah. I remember having to wait for, the best part of a year to get the next version of iOS because you have to wait for the update and then you have to wait for the jailbreak so that you could start using it. It's ridiculous.
So were you a jailbreaker as well?
Yeah, of course I was.
I thought so. And I miss Cydia so much. For those of you who don't know, Cydia was like the App Store. It's what inspired Apple to create the App Store. What I believe, 100%. And people were able to make tweaks and do the things like, notification center, all these things you have right now. We had.
That was really fun.
Yeah. and Apple played this game with us. So like every time an iOS dropped, they'd stamp it out and stop you from jailbreaking. And then we'd have to wait for somebody to hack, to create a vulnerability, find a vulnerability, mostly in Safari. And then we'd all be able to move on. And what came from your development was Audiobus, and that really opened the door for us to not have to jailbreak as much.
Yeah, it kind of turned toys into tools, didn't it? Suddenly you're able to use those cool little sound makers to actually do something legitimately creative without having to have 1,000 audio interfaces connected together. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'll hit you with my standard questions that I bang everybody with. So this is a two-part. We're going down two paths today because I want to ask about music first. Michael, what does music mean to you?
Music for me this is kind of ridiculous because of what I do for a living, but music for me is Irish music. It's all I listen to. It's all I play. I yeah, I don't know. I just love playing traditional Irish music and listening to it, and I adore it. It's what I'm doing if I'm not working. And yeah, I play the fiddle and the concertina more recently, which is like an accordion. It's got sort of a hexagonal side, and you have buttons at the end, and it's just the most wonderful thing. It sounds great. It's so fun to play. And yeah, so I before one of these lockdowns, it's hard to keep track now. I was going into sessions in the city and playing with 20 other Irish musicians, and just in a pub, pot of Guinness and playing music. That's music for me.
When I hear the word fiddle on this channel, we're terrible with innuendo. So I'm surprised
Love a good fiddle.
I'm surprised nobody's gone crazy in the chat. We love.
I'm quite enjoying fiddling in public, actually.
Knobs is one of the favourites on here. There's always lots of knobs on our gear, so it's a
Speaking of which, I need to twiddle a knob. Here we go. Twiddle. There we go.
So, do you recall the music that was played in your household growing up, and has it influenced you in what you listen to these days?
Not at all. On both counts, actually. Hang on, I need to just tweak this again.
Sure.
There's a very, very fine balance between too much and not enough. No. Actually, it's funny. Any questions about my childhood, I'm barely able to answer. I have some. I'm very much a creature of the now, and I have very little memory of almost anything before. I don't know. I don't reminisce much, and yeah. So I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I mean, I think there was a little bit of Bowie here and there, which I still very much enjoy. So maybe that's crept in there somewhere.
Well,
Otherwise, who knows? There wasn't Irish music though. That's one thing that I remember, and I kind of regret that.
So what was it that triggered you towards Irish music? Was there something in particular?
Good question. I don't know.
Was it the beer?
I think it was. It certainly helps. No, it was like the Death of a Thousand Cuts, really. Like it was just lots of little exposures to it, and we spent a little bit of time in Ireland, and I am a bit Irish, not enough to be classified as anything except Australian, but I feel a bit Irish. I'm sure that's true of everybody. But no, it's just one thing after another, and then I must have reached some threshold and went, okay, this is everything for me now. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's all that matters. One of the phrases I say on this channel every day is, do the things that make you happy, and you never need to explain yourself.
That's right. I think that's really almost all there is. If you can manage to do that, all the rest will fall into place.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember the first album that you ever purchased or was given to you as a gift?
Wow.
I know.
Actually, funnily enough, all that comes to mind is a mixtape that. Speaking of not having childhood memories, I happen to have this one. I remember a school camp, and I was given a mixtape, which was full of Beatles stuff to play at the school camp on the disco night. I remember that. I was so cool with Beatles on a tape.
The disco notes. Did you ever go to a blue light disco when you were young?
No. No, I can't say I ever did. That's not part of my background.
You're lucky. You're lucky though. Always
it does
horrible.
Sound pretty atrocious.
Yeah, there was always wine coolers involved, and somebody got punched at the end. Always, they were terrible.
Nice. Sounds about right.
Yeah. I grew up in Bacchus Marsh, so for those of you who don't know, that's this wee little country town out towards Ballarat, out in the country, and every weekend was a punch fest.
Sounds brilliant. Cultural.
Yeah,
the cultural event.
Oi! It was a good time. So
brilliant.
I want to ask. All right, so now I'm going to go down the other path because I know you're a geek, and geeks unite because nerding out is cool. It wasn't when we were young. Being a nerd growing up, do you remember facing any aggression or anything like that? Because we're at different times these days.
Yeah, I mean, it is different times. I was lucky enough to grow up in the hills, east of Melbourne, the Dandenong Ranges, and it's I don't know, we have this sort of little subculture here. It's very lefty, greeny, hippie
Yeah.
in this part of the world. And so I think probably on average we had a lot less of that kind of stuff. There's a little here and there. But nothing untoward. I think I probably suffered a little bit because I took year 8 off the whole year and I traveled around Australia with my family. And so I had basically year 8, you could argue about the years either side too, but I feel like year 8 is a bit of a formative year when you're sort of transforming into from a tween to a teen. And I think there are a lot of social norms which you pick up during that time. And if you miss that by hanging around with adults for a year, I think that puts you at a bit of a disadvantage. And I think I probably suffered from that more than anything else. But
I feel your pain. I missed year 8 as well. My mum passed away, and so I got taken out of school to look after my sisters.
Jeez, I can't imagine what that would be like.
These things happen, don't they? You like everything with life, you just got to push through, don't you? Or you get stood on if you let people stand on you. Speaking about the mountains, the only time I've been to the mountains quite a lot up where you live, and most of those times were to go and pick magic mushrooms, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah, we have a lot of those here.
And they're really good. So folks, if you're coming from the UK or America and you're in Australia and Melbourne, you need magic mushrooms, the Dandenongs are the perfect place to go.
Yep, come see us.
Where am I going? Do you remember, I'll ask this question. What does coding mean to you?
Pretty much what I do all day. It's an amazing form of expression. It's what I live and breathe. I've been doing it since I was 6 on an Apple IIe.
Wow.
And I know. Yeah, speaking of nerdism. Yeah. And I live and breathe it. Yep.
My first computer was a Commodore VIC-20.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
With the tapes?
No, this VIC-20s, I think they had tapes, but my family couldn't afford the tape. So it came with a cartridge with a game called Rat Race. It was terrible. It was like Pac-Man with a mouse. And then my family upgraded me to a Commodore 64 with a tape. And that's when everything exploded. Do you know those nights when, unfortunately, my dad, he really wanted to get into computing and would sit up with me all night with those computer magazines, typing in those pages of programs.
Yeah.
And then we'd get like to line 8,000 and finally finish and then go, all right, let's go, run, enter, syntax error, line 3. Another day.
Can't believe that's the way we did things.
Another day of going through each line where every syntax error was. And then by the time the game was, by the time you finally got it to run, it was like, wow, this sucks.
You don't care anymore.
Yeah. I don't want to play this horrible golf game.
Isn't it amazing? That's software distribution via printed media.
I know. I'm sure there are some people right now watching this, either here right now or on the replay, going, "What are they talking about? What is a magazine?"
I should ship. You know how people ship their albums on vinyl. I should ship Loopy in a magazine, like that the code actually feels warmer when you enter it in yourself.
Oh my god!
I think that'd be nice.
Could you imagine the bug reporting? The Audiobus forums would explode.
Yeah.
They'd never come back.
But then it's your own fault if there are bugs as opposed to my fault.
Yeah.
So I quite like that.
Take a ticket, and when they get a ticket, the email comes back to them and they have to answer their own problem. That's perfect. So your first computer was the Apple II. See, we had those at school, and to me, they were like, "Oh wow, they're so expensive and they're so cool, and I wish I could afford one of those." And
we couldn't. But my mother was a teacher, and she used to bring the school's one home on like weekends and school holidays, and I'd frantically tap away. So I was pretty lucky.
I remember playing Karateka at school on the Apple II. It was one of my favorite things. I've got somebody in the chat who has asked a question. Ed Zielinski has asked, why not code video games? Why did you code music apps?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think that would be fun too. But none of this was ever a decision on my part. My first music app was Loopy. which was a very different beast to what it is now. And I just did it because I wanted to. I had some spare time. I should have been working on my PhD, but I couldn't be asked, and still not finished, I'll confess. But I just wanted to mess around, and that seemed a good a place as any. And I kind of fell in love with it. I just really enjoy audio, and I like making tools. I like making things that you can make stuff with.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, the other thing, of course, it wasn't part of the decision because there was no decision. I just fell into it. But you really can't make a living with making games. It's ridiculous that the field is so overpopulated. And if you manage to break even, then you're really lucky. It's really hard.
Yeah, look,
we're
definitely going to get into that question very, very soon, relating to being a developer and how to monetize anything is really tough these days, and to get paid.
It is.
With the race to the bottom, as they called it back in the day. What was it that drew you to iOS?
There was nothing else like it. I mean, I remember, I think at one point I downloaded the Symbian SDK because that was sort of one of the sort of leaders before iOS came along, and went, oh, no, no, I don't think so. And then, iOS was there with its it's from Apple. It's delightful. It's beautiful to use. It's inspiring to develop on, and I was hooked straight away. I mean, I was already a Mac user, so I was kind of a bit on board there already, but really there was no decision to make. It was iOS. It was lovely.
See, my journey was a little bit different. I never owned a Mac. I'd worked on them many years, like in my jobs and stuff like that, but I never actually owned one because PCs were so much cheaper. And then I got my first iPhone, and I was just blown away. I just couldn't believe how... it gets thrown around. People laugh at the whole Steve Jobs saying things are magical and all this stuff. But my phone before that was a flip phone. And that thing was abhorrent. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
But
it was a magical upgrade. It was unbelievable. And the way that it was just right there in front of you. I mean, my previous ones, it had a color display and it was big and stuff, but you still had to, scroll with a little joystick. It was click, 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 click. And that was not a nice user experience. You didn't want to pick it up and use it.
Yeah. And when that iPad dropped, I remember all of the naysayers, I guess all of the people in the tech industry, there was so much ridicule of it being, firstly, the name, the iPad, and people were saying, they're comparing it to very stupid things. It's just a big iPhone. It's just a consumption device. You can only watch movies on it. And it was so weird at the time. I felt like I was living in the Matrix or something, and that I was the only one seeing the code that was actually laid out before me. That no, you're missing the point. Like they haven't even developed iPad specific apps yet for that. How can you be so blinkered and not see what's coming? Did you have this vision? Did you think you would get to the point that we're at right now with iOS and when you got your first iPad?
You know what? It was actually quite a while before I got my first iPad. I was enamored with the phone, and I mean, I still don't use an iPad. It doesn't really, but partly because if I've got time, I'm working and I need a big screen. So yeah, but honestly, when I started making Loopy and looked at the SDK, I sort of realized that pretty quickly that this is something that, with the right level of attention and energy, that could work out into something pretty special. Just in terms of a career. In terms of the capabilities of the device itself, I was pretty sold straight away.
I find it incredibly interesting. So you have an iPad now, or you don't?
Well, I do. I have this thing which I use for developing. It's an iPad Air 2, deliberately ancient machine. But on a day-to-day basis, I don't use it. I use my phone, and But if I actually made music with apps, and I'm embarrassed to say that I don't because I played the concertina instead, but I would definitely be using the iPad. I'd be all about the iPad. And the iPad's an amazing platform for that sort of thing. It's just who has time?
Well, that is the thing too, yeah. And so folks, and I will say hello to the people in the chat in a moment. So thank you all for being here today. It just goes to prove, here we are talking with Michael Tyson, who's developer behind Audiobus and Loopy Pro, and he's still using an Air 2, folks. Use the gear that you have. You don't need the latest stuff to make your best stuff. That is the most important thing, yeah?
Yeah, it's important too as a developer because you can miss so much stuff when you use. I mean, the new devices are ridiculous. They are so fast, but you can miss a lot of things. You can, if you've got some massive error in the code that's causing huge delays, often you won't see it on the newer devices. So it's a good way to kind of it's the canary in the coal mine,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, a lot of people miss out these days. I try to bring this up. So as a musician, back in the day, you used to have to, hard slog, get out there and play gigs and never get paid and go through all this drama to paying your dues, they used to call it, to actually get to the point of getting into a studio and recording and such. And I think with recording on iOS devices too, I think it's a really beneficial to start off with a lower device and face the struggles of trying to problem solve to make your best music and make your apps talk to each other and find solutions between doors and stuff to get the best product. So by the time you update to an iPad Pro or something, it just is like a dream. It's just like, butter in your hands. So it's a good thing sometimes to be using an older device and tough it out and go through those problems,
Bit of self-flagellation first, and then you can really enjoy when it stops.
Absolutely. Torture yourself.
I recommend hitting yourself in the head with a brick.
Yes.
It's delightful when it ends.
I do normally suggest that once a week on the show, but thankfully nobody's followed my advice because that would be a lawsuit waiting to happen. What are some of the challenges that you face developing on iOS? It's a loaded question.
I know. There's so much history behind that question. The usual ones, actually. My main challenge now is getting enough time. We have a little boy, a 5-year-old, and we do day on, day off parenting. So it's amazing how if you remove every second day, you lose a lot more than every second day in terms of time. Yep. It's crazy. But life logistics aside, it's challenging to keep up with all of the updates and the deprecations and the occasional bug here and there. I have a lot of respect for Apple engineers. I think they work really hard and they've got a very difficult job. And so I can forgive quite a lot. There are bugs from time to time, but look, I make bugs from time to time, and my QA, quality assurance testing, isn't perfect either. So I tend to be very forgiving of that sort of stuff, so I tend not to get too worked up about it. One thing that I have done with Loopy Pro, and this is partly because I'm an idiot, but pretty much everything is my own code.
Yep.
I really like having control because a lot of, particularly UIKit, which is the framework on which all of the interface is built in iOS, it often doesn't necessarily do what you expect. And I've lost a lot of time in the past with other projects, just trying one thing after another to try and make something work, just guessing because I don't have access to the code and I can't tell what's happening underneath and it's not working right. And I just try one thing after another, and it can be days of doing that. And that's not just specific to, Apple stuff. That's working with any closed source API, But I took a different tack with Loopy Pro, and absolutely everything you see is my own code. I'm rendering text by drawing rectangles to the screen with a texture on each one, loading the fonts and rendering them out. And, I do absolutely everything from the ground up, which is ridiculous, but it does mean that I'm much faster. I can whack out a new. That sounds a bit lewd. I can bash out a new feature quite quickly because I have full control of the entire stack.
Yep.
And that's I really enjoy that as compared to how it used to be, which was often a bit of a slog. Of course, the downside is, and I've got all of this other code that I also have to maintain and fix bugs in. So, as I said before, I'm a bit of an idiot, but I enjoy it.
I've got a question here from somebody in the chat, and we'll say hello to these guys. Audible Video has written, if you're not using the SDK, how much extra time do you save and spend?
It's got to be negative by this point.
Right.
I mean, I think from here, the thing is, I enjoy it more because I'm spending much less time going, why is that layout not looking the way it should, and how am I going to fix that? Because I have no idea what's happening under the hood. Like, I spend much less time figuring out those problems, and instead I can sort of be creative and do stuff. And yeah, but look, it took me a long time to make the underlying frameworks, so probably the amount of time saved is negligible, if not negative. But it's more fun.
It's interesting, this little iOS music community that we are kind of involved in here, like across things like Audiobus Forum here on YouTube, Facebook groups and such, because we think the world revolves around us. Yeah.
Well, it does.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. But when it comes to Apple, at the end of the day, they are making these products for mostly your average consumer who just wants to send even though they have the power to send a spaceship to the moon in their pocket, they just want to send texts and just open Facebook and flick. So Apple are constantly trying to create features that benefit users, like the low-hanging fruit, as they would call them. No offense to anybody who's just using it for that kind of stuff. And we kind of get, bent out of shape going, but I want this now. Why aren't you looking after us?
We're kind of lucky that we get what we get, really.
Yeah. Do you think since the passing of Steve Jobs that maybe sometimes, because he was so into creators and music and really pushing that envelope, do you think a little bit of the way Apple's kind of lost that vision towards creators? It's not as intense. What are your thoughts on that?
Who knows? I'm not a minor reader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A good point.
Part of it also is, there are disadvantages to success,
Yeah.
and part of, it's ridiculous, this sort of roller coaster that we're all on, that you have to have something shiny and new every year.
Yeah.
And it's got to, like, if it's not shiny enough, then people complain, and your stock drops, which means your shareholders get angry with you. It's ridiculous. It's a stupid way to do things, but it's the world that we live in, and I think it's all connected. I don't think it's just about Steve not being around anymore. I think there's a lot of factors involved, and it's just the world we live in.
So you develop all these apps by yourself, yeah?
I do, yeah. Well, Audiobus, I had a bit of help along the way. There was my business partner, Sebastian, who was sort of an advisor and a ideas engine along the way. And then Audiobus 3 itself was developed mostly by Gabriel, who's another developer. He's the bloke that does Sound Prism now, Audanica, which has just been released recently. So I had a bit of help along the way. Loopy Pro is just me, though.
Yep. The Audiobus Forum, it's really well known across iOS music and creators on the internet. Has having that forum been really helpful for you, like almost like maybe an extra limb as a development partner that helps you test these things out? Do you get what I'm saying?
The community, definitely. The forum itself, I think, it's an open forum, so anyone can sound out the community there. No, I think that the Audiobus Forum is mostly just sort of this auxiliary thing. Yeah. but I will say that the community around Audiobus and around Loopy is I struggle to find the words to describe what it is to me, because it is like a sort of extra brain. The thing is, I don't use this stuff myself. I'm not really a musician in this sense, and I don't have any experience with electronic music, which is really quite ridiculous given what I do. But when I first made Loopy, I didn't know what a looper was. I didn't know what overdub meant, and I had to learn all this stuff. I made up my own terms in the interface. It was very embarrassing. But but along the way, I think it's the user base and the community which has helped to educate me and help provide ideas along the way. That's largely where Loopy Pro came from. It came from years of talking to people about Loopy. And, I had this massive notes document full of all the ideas and feature requests that people had made. And Loopy came from looking at that and going, okay, those fit together. And this is as much a product of the community as it is of my own labor,
Absolutely. Speaking of the community, I'm just going to say hello to some of the people who are here. So thank you all for being here. Hi, Lay Productions Zvon. Hello, Tremor Bear. Sai, always effing good to see you. Ivan Idea, Thomas Christ, Fam, Audible Video, Barry Glenn. Who else is here? Ed Zielinski. I saw Pete Johns in here. Who else? Dr. Zorders. Whoop, I didn't get the effect in quick enough. SM Borthwick. I think Russ, I saw Russ 88, 89 here as well, just flicking through. Patrick from the Garage Band Guide, welcome to you. Also, thank you for being here. Stephen Hewitt, what am I saying? I can't even read today. Audible Video, let's have a look. See, Dan Eckberg, thank you for being here. I saw Ed Zielinski as well. So a massive number of you here. Thank you all for being here today. And John Frank Songs as well. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. It's very kind of you to spend some time with us. And I love you guys in this community. You make this show happen.
And yes, Apple should definitely feature Loopy Pro in their slick marketing media. Do that.
Absolutely.
Apple.
Do it, Apple. Do it now.
Get off your butts. Samplebot, just replying to Audible Video there. Samplebot, I think I probably will do an update at some point. In fact, I was working on Samplebot 2 before I went, actually, what am I doing? I should be working on Loopy Pro. But I got a ridiculously long way, actually, towards almost being ready for release. So it's sitting there just waiting for me to have a moment to play with it. But I think I will probably get back to it at some point. But I do have this other new project which I kind of want to play with for a little while called Loopy Pro. There's some more features that it needs to have.
Yes, indeed. I want to talk a little bit about Audiobus because it did change my life. It really did. Just to be able to make apps talk to each other. It was so monumental in my music creation. I don't make any other music on any other device apart from iOS. I have since 2012.
That's fantastic.
And it's what's driven me to do this show.
Cool.
But with Audiobus, not only has it, and if you don't have Audiobus, go out and grab it. It's something that will be very beneficial to you. It's one of those tools that in a pinch, you're looking, how do I make this work with this? It's just that little Swiss Army knife you can pull out up your sleeve, and it'll do those things. It's really cool. It's been something else that's really interesting as well, I've found over the years. When Apple's released an update and something's been broken, it's been Audiobus that has created a fix to make things talk to each other again. So you've been really innovative with that kind of stuff too, and got us as a music creator, and I used to make the mistake of updating straight away, and though there's still those people who do it, but if it wasn't for Audiobus, people wouldn't have been able to move on, immediately to keep making music because of the little bugs that broke things. How has that been like to be able to do that? Or like
awful, dreadful. Yeah, I mean it's one among many of the reasons that Loopy Pro has taken so long. It's my 5-year-old trying to get in. It's one of the he wants to come and show me something, I think. I have to wait. It's one of the reasons why Loopy Pro has taken so long, because there were lots of things to fix along the way with Audiobus. When I think it was iOS 8 or 7 or 8, one of those, when inter-app audio came on the scene. I'm just making sure I'm allowed to talk about this. I'm pretty sure it's fine. Audiobus, before inter-app audio was on the scene, was built upon this thing called Mac ports, which is a communication technology basically that's built into iOS and the Mac too, and it lets apps talk to each other. And that worked beautifully. It was really fast. It was just perfect for Audiobus. And that came after my prototype, which was built on virtual MIDI. it was sending the audio over the MIDI, and then I realized that's ridiculous. I'll try and find out what that's built on and use that, which I did. And then with Interapp Audio, at the same time, the security team at Apple were getting a bit more ferocious in how they were clamping down on things, and they shut off Mac ports.
Wow.
So suddenly nothing was working. At that time, we'd been invited to WWDC, and the head of the audio team and stuff sat down with us and said, "Look, this is happening, and we've left basically a little hole open for you to go through for one major iOS release, so that to give us a bit of leeway," which was really kind of them. So we actually got a reprieve during that time, and then it was 9 months of work to try and figure out what to do next. So that's when I pivoted to building it on Interapp Audio. But there were, it was never a perfect technology, and there were a lot of things that needed solving along the way. So I think we probably lost. I probably lost a year, maybe a year and a half, just trying to make it all work again. So that was horrible. That was so much work for nothing. I mean, users don't see it. You can't monetize it. It's a year lost. Yeah. So it was atrocious. And things like that come along. It's just dead time. It's just it's very unfortunate. But it's the way that it goes.
And here we are in 2022, still waiting for Interapp Audio to be depreciated. Is it going to happen?
I don't know. I think there are too many people using it right now, and I mean it's difficult to tell because who knows what's around the corner. It's impossible to read minds at Apple. So it's possible, and you know what? I don't think it would be the end of the world if it happened. I think it would help to push everyone onto audio units, AUV3, which is a wonderful technology. It's far better than Audiobus, far better than Interapp Audio, because it's they had access to the system. They can build it in from the ground up, which I could never do with Audiobus because I was just a end developer. So I really like audio units, the way you can have multiple instances, you can have multiple of the UIs up on the screen. It's just a good technology, and I think it wouldn't be the end of the world if IIA died a death and then pushed all of the developers to add audio unit support to their apps. Of course, I know there's the downside, which is that some developers who aren't really able to make an ongoing living with their apps, don't have the resources to update them. So we're going to lose a few along the way, which is really sad. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. Maybe it depends on how easy it is. Maybe I could, I was saying back in the day when they announced the deprecation that I'd try to rejig Audiobus again so that it supported those apps. And maybe there's some way to do that.
Without trying to be too much of a pessimist here, looking into my crystal ball, I feel there's so much hate for Interapp Audio at the moment, and I still do shows on apps that are only Interapp Audio, and I talk them up because it's still a good technology. And sure, everything has its nothing's perfect, but I feel like as soon as they take it away, there's going to be this group of people who are like, I want it back now. Because you can't please everybody, and as soon as something's gone, then people are going to want it back because it's just human nature, I think.
That's how it goes. I think the the moral of the story here is what we said before, which is don't update your devices straight away. If you're serious about music, have two devices. Have your iPad, which you keep stable, and have another one, or use your iPhone and stuff, which you keep up to date and you use basically as a testing platform. And once everything is great on your testing platform, only then do you update. Of course, that's hard because you can't update to a specific version. You can't go, okay, I've used iOS 14 for a year. That's good. Now I'm going to update. No, you can't do that. You've got to go straight to 15. So that's hard. Within those parameters, that is the way to do things.
Yeah, I learned my lesson with iOS 11. That was a disaster for me because a lot of the things I used, like Audio Pro, GarageBand had a big problem, and they couldn't fix it for like over a month. I remember that was a big pain in the ass. Ever since then, when the iOS drops in September, I always wait till the 5th of January, and I've just updated all my devices last week, and there's no problems. And it's hard because you see everyone else doing it, and I know we're humans. We see everyone else with the latest thing, and I want to update too. It's and there is this weird thing about iOS where people feel the need to have the betas before they're released, and it used to be when a beta would come out, Apple would say these are only for for developers, and you had to have a developer account, and then they opened up to the public. I have my doubts about opening up to the public because I always think, do the public send bug reports? Is it helping?
Well, often, I mean, it's just speaking for me, I would say of the people who joined the Loopy Pro beta, there's about 600 or so, maybe 50 actually. Sort of, I only ever heard from about 50, something like that. But it's still useful because you get crash reports, you get aggregate data, which can be useful. You know that you've got a problem with that code somewhere, and that's what you need to focus on. So it's, I think that's what they're doing. They're just they're hoping that they can get enough, and I think it's good, really. I mean, I wouldn't be using the beta software myself, but if some other masochist wants to go for a merry ride of crashness, fine, that's great. They can be the guinea pigs.
Absolutely, do it to yourself. We don't care.
Yeah.
Just don't cry.
Stop hitting yourself.
Yeah, just enjoy the pain. I'm going to jump over and talk about my sponsor for today for a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, today's show is brought to you by the amazing people at DistroKid, and I want to thank them for being a sponsor here of my interviews once a month. DistroKid are an amazing platform that allow you to release unlimited amounts of music for an entire year for a very, very low price of $19.99. That's US a year. It's a fantastic service. You get unlimited songs. You get to upload your lyrics. You get a Spotify verified check mark, and you can actually collect team earnings. So if you share with another artist, you can share the money that you make with somebody else who's been a part of your project. They have 3 tiers here. So a Musician Plus, which allows you 2 artist or band names, and a whole bunch of other features like daily sales stats, customizable label names, release dates, pre-order dates, all this kind of stuff, which is really cool. Plus, they also have, for someone like myself who has multiple bands, a label account for $79.99 a year. We can have 5 artists plus and get all these really cool features to help you release your stuff. Also, what I want to show you quickly today is not only do they have a whole bunch of great tools to show off your music once you've released it. If this is my page of all the music I've released, as you can see, I make good use of my DistroKid account and release a lot of stuff. You'll see over here, these are all the places you can release music to. And one of them includes Facebook, which is connected to Instagram. And why is this really good to release to Facebook and Instagram? You get to choose these places. You don't have to go to all of them. You can choose wherever you want. I just want to show you guys, this is why I love being able to release music to Facebook, because you can open your Facebook app at any time and you can create a story on Facebook, and you can actually add your music to that story really easily. And for some reason, it's not letting me do this right. If I go to my channel here and release a story, let's do this on I think I can do it here. Oh, I love live streaming. It's perfect. And it's not going to let me log in. There we go. But what you can do... yeah, let's type in my password. You can actually create a story here on Facebook, and you can actually connect your music to it. So when people see your story, they can hear your music along with the story. It's really, really cool. And you can do this on Instagram. You can do this on Snapchat. It's a really cool feature. And all you need to do is just search for your music on the story that you are doing. Yeah, it's super cool, and I recommend you do it. So thank you so much, DistroKid, for sponsoring the interviews once a month and ongoing for 2022. You guys rock. Without you, I wouldn't be able to release so much cool music. And if you click the little, go into the description and click my link, which is distrokid.com/VIP/Jade Starr, you get 7% off your first year. So if you're going to release music, there's no better time than right now. do it. Yeah, awesome. Let's talk about looping, because I never understood looping myself. I come from a background of death metal and all this kind of stuff, but I have always been a singer of jazz and fusion. I love all styles of music, but looping always challenged me. I just couldn't get my head around it. I felt clumsy. I felt like I lost my coordination. Was like Steve Martin at the beginning of the film The Jerk, trying to dance on the porch. Just had no rhythm whatsoever, and I always struggled with it. How did you get into looping? Was it a natural thing?
It was a couple of exposures to it. I guess the same with the Irish music stuff. You know, I just saw it and heard it enough times to go, this is actually really cool. The first time I was really exposed to it, and this was one of the sort of catalyst moments, I think, was watching Imogen Heap do a performance on a radio show. And I was already, quite a big fan of her music, and then seeing her create this thing right in front of us. That's the thing about loopers. It's kind of, I mean, in a way, it's a gimmick, right? Like, it's just being able to see the creation process happen right in front of you. You need to follow it up with some musicality, but yeah, I was really, I was just floored by the fact that you can watch it be built in front of you, and it takes practice. It's tricky to do, but it's just something about it. Almost makes you feel like you're part of the creation process because you're watching it be built. You sort of, I don't know. It's like raising a child. If you just see some random child in the street, that's a cute child, whatever. But when you can see all of the different stages of development right from the beginning, and you're there for the whole way, it means more. Yeah. Speaking as a parent, and I feel like that's what you get with loopers. You're right there through the whole process. You can, if there's a particular beat that comes up, you're like, I remember when he made that beat, and it's just cool,
I remember seeing this app, and I still don't own it. I can admit my flaws, because I was afraid of loopers for so long. I remember seeing Loopy HD and going, I've got no use for that. I'm a DAW person. I thrash out my guitar, I do my drums, and I've got no use for it. But I saw lots of people praising its existence, and so how did Loopy HD first come about? And what? How did it? How did it just come about? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, well, I mean, Loopy, the very first Loopy, which looks very different to this, it came about because I just wanted to mess about. I was sick of working on my bloody PhD, and I just wanted to make something interesting, and so I just sort of twiddled away, and there it was. But it wasn't very good. I mean, it was fine. It wasn't that great. And then I kind of forgot about it for a while, and went back to work on the PhD, and then we decided, my wife Catherine and I decided that we were going to go and travel the world. So did a last hard slog writing the thesis, trying to get it done. Still not done. 10, 15 years later. So that went well. But but we left Australia. We flew over to the UK. We bought a motorhome, and we lived in it for 3.5 years, roaming around Europe. Wow. And which is an amazing opportunity to get to have. But it turns out that doing that is really freaking cheap, especially compared to living in Australia, where our rent is, it's 10 times worse than it was when we were young. But it's ridiculous living in Australia. And so it gave me the ability to just sort of sit back and go, what do I want to do? Because when you're paying rent in Australia, you don't have time to sit back and think. You got to, find a freaking job. Yeah. So it gave me time to sit back, and we're actually, the whole experience of traveling around Europe in the motorhome completely wasted on us, because we probably traveled for about 6 months, and then both of us felt like we really wanted to just make something. And so we started slowing way down. We'd find, a nice spot to park up with power and water and stuff. And then we would just sit inside the van at our 2 separate workspaces, one at the back, one in the middle. And we would just work. Wow. So that was when I started actually making not Loopy, but I made another travel app called The Cartographer, which originally I made for us because, say we were in Rome and we wanted to, there were a few things we wanted to see. It was a bit early on in, mobile internet and mobile apps, and there was no offline maps or anything like that. So it was, it was kind of old school doing the tourism thing. You do big paper maps and where am I? And I thought, it'd be really fun if I could just do this on my phone, and we could research all the places that we wanted to see. We could chuck them on a map, and then you could do an offline version of the map and then just take it with you wherever you go. And you've got a map, you can know where you are, the places that you want to see. So that's what I made, and I hooked it up to Google Maps so that you could Google My Maps, that is. It's where you can make your own map and put place marks on and then save it as a group of place marks and things. So I made that for me, and then I went, I've come this far, I might as well put it on the App Store. So I spent sort of 6 months or so polishing it, making it look sexy, and put it out. So that was my first sort of attempt at actually making a bit of a go of it. Because Loopy, it never made any money or anything. It wasn't really the point. So that went very well. It got featured by Apple, for 9 months in a row or something. It was ridiculous. They loved it. And it sort of made enough to keep us going for a bit. And then, and I thought, there's that fun little project I was working on before we left. Might have another crack at it. So that was Loopy 2, which looks a lot like Loopy HD does now. Loopy HD was actually from a time when people tended to release different apps targeting the iPad and targeting the iPhone rather than having universal ones, because at the time it just made economic sense to do it. But people were expecting to pay a bit more for the iPad apps, and it's different now. But Loopy HD came from that. So it was sort of another crack at it, and I thought, I'm actually going to try and make a go of this and see if I can turn it into a career. And the rest is history.
It's interesting, because the whole, you mentioned early too, when you're in year 8, you did the whole traveling thing. It's a very Australian thing to jump in a caravan and go travel around Australia, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? The grand pilgrimage.
So many families have done it. My family did it for a short period of time as well. It's like you earn your stripes as an Aussie by getting a caravan for a period of time and traveling.
That's right. And in Australia, you could drive for 48 hours and it looks the same.
Endless fields and sheep forever, as far as the eye can see. So from now, Loopy was extremely successful. So also, as well as Samplebot, very successful apps, because I've seen on YouTube these apps featured on, was it Jimmy Fallon, or it's one of those TV shows? I saw it
was Jimmy Fallon.
And what's his name? Singing to.
There were a few. Yeah. There was Jimmy. There was Billy Joel.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep. And there was Will Smith did one, and Robert Plant did one, and I think Queen Latifah did one as well. That was it was a bit of a recurring segment to my absolute mind blowage.
Did you know about that before it happened? Did you have?
No, it was a total surprise. I just saw it on Twitter. Hang on, isn't Loopy on? And then it was ridiculous. And I had a conversation with the lead engineer on the show, who it turns out is a Loopy user. So Jimmy had the idea that he wanted to do this thing that he didn't know what looping was either. He just described he wanted to sort of do this thing where he could layer the things on top of each other, and they tried a few different things. They tried some loop pedals. They tried Ableton Live, and nothing was quite working out. And John, the engineer guy, said, actually, you know what? I've got an app here which I think could work, and it was perfect for them apparently. So right place, right time.
Yeah, I saw the video of it. Was just like, what the hell? This is incredible. It just must be mind-blowing to see such incredible artists using these things like that. Just, to come from your imagination. And there are these people who've shaped so many people's lives making music. Billy Joel, I'm sure, like many artists, there's those songs that you hear that bring you back to places, and they shape who you are. And here they are, playing around on this slab of glass, touching these screens. It just must be incredible. I was blown away by that. So it's
me too.
Incredible stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that that performance, it goes through lines of code that I wrote.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty crazy.
So I noticed with get my head together. I got umming and ahhing a lot today with Samplebot. There is some similar screens in Samplebot. Kind of, it's Samplebot like a bit of some of the code out of that has gone into Loopy Pro along with Loopy HD.
Yes, indeed. Turns out it's exactly the same code base, just with a few things turned on and
Right.
off. Yeah. Samplebot was my sort of little pre-release little foray with Loopy Pro's code base. Yeah. Samplebot actually came about, I wasn't planning on doing anything like that, but it came about too because of The Tonight Show. They had an idea and they contacted me and said, have you got anything like this? And I went, no, but give me a few weeks and I will. And so I smashed out Samplebot in order to facilitate this segment on the show. And, I figured the way to do this was to make an app that, that anyone could get so that when people saw it, they could go and play with it themselves. And so, I smashed out Samplebot and from the Loopy Pro code base, which I was, working on at the time. And this is another reason why Loopy Pro has been this long in coming. Lots of distractions along the way. But that was why. And then it turned out that the night that they were going to do the segment, it was immediately before, geez, there have been so many, I can't even remember. It was one of the mass shootings in the US. I think it was the one in LA. And they were, no, we can't do this. We've got to talk about what happened.
Right.
So the segment didn't go ahead. So, they did a couple of little bits and pieces later, just sort of fun things, including with Chris Hemsworth and a few little segments. So let's use it as a sort of funny noisemaker, really. That's the story behind Samplebot.
Well, I just purchased it, so.
Oh, thank you.
I just did it there on camera. So I was going to do it before the show, and I forgot to do it. So I just did it then on the show because I actually wanted to play around with it and see where the code came from. And I do get a lot of codes on this show because I review a lot of stuff. But just to show people that I do buy stuff as well. So I do support people. So
thank you.
So I look forward to having a play around with that and making lots of fart noises and stupid stuff when I do a review of it on the show.
Pretty much.
Because that's the good stuff, yeah.
Samplebot's a funny one, really. I'm just looking at the review there and going, yeah, that's about right, 3.9. It's not great. Because it's one that I released pretty fast, and I've got all these plans for it. But look, Loopy Pro had to come first. I'd love to get back to it.
What's your take on the review? I'm just looking at this review here. Some people write some of the most.
Well, idiot programs and applications. Well, idiot programs and applications were the way, but it takes only some of the screen. It's
unbelievable how angry this person is.
Yeah, people get pretty angry.
Wow. Is it frustrating the way the system works because you can only really respond to those, can't you? You can just respond in.
I think it's great that you can respond to them. I mean, you didn't used to be able to, and it would just be. I used to deliberately not look because it was just. I mean, it's this funny thing in human psychology, right? You can get 10 people saying what you have made has changed my life, and you get one person who says it's shit. And that's what you hear. You don't hear the 10. It's stupid. I can't believe that's the way that our minds work. But I used to really suffer from that, and to the point where I just didn't look at reviews anymore at all. But I've changed my tack now. I look at everything and I respond to absolutely every review, and say thank you so much, or I'm sorry to hear you're disappointed. Subtitle: You're an asshole.
You've got to be tactful with your asshole naming.
It's so hard to be tactful. It's really, I think becoming a parent has made me a bit better at that.
Yeah. Because
it's the same impulses that drive those 1-star reviews as an unregulated toddler. I think a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time it's that kind of, I'm angry. But I think you engage and often you can turn it around.
Yeah. My advice to people, I try and say it on the show. Hey, if you're struggling, there's a problem with an app, you're on YouTube already. Do a search first. I'm sure somebody's already found a solution to the problem before you get angry and send it to the developer and leave some kind of shit stain on the wall like that, because it's hard to scrub that stuff off the wall. And, it's not beneficial to anybody.
It is, and it makes I mean, people might think that it's sort of, a victimless thing, but it makes a real difference to developers' bottom line, because it directly impacts how Apple ranks you. And that ranking is pretty important. So it's you want to kick someone, leave them a 1-star review, and it definitely, it will have an impact on their business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people need to remember too, this isn't we're all doing these things to help. Like, I do this show to help people make music. You develop apps to help people make music. We're not doing this to hurt you, right? So, like, I don't know if some people just sit there thinking, well, this personally affects me. My whole day's ruined. I'm just going to destroy their entire business. No. Don't do that. Relax. Because, people like yourself, I know when I first reached out to you, I think it was on Instagram, just to do the show and grab a few codes and stuff. You're extremely approachable. And I think, most developers are.
Most developers are. Absolutely. Yeah. There's this strange, maybe it's something, I don't know, because we're so used to just thinking that, at the other end of the product development cycle is just some faceless big company, and they don't care about you. But in the app world, it's not like that. I mean, okay, maybe the App Store page looks really slick and well designed. Doesn't mean that there's a massive team of people at the other end. More often than not, it's just one person. And I've had 1-star reviews for Loopy Pro come in, whereas this big company doesn't care. I can't remember what the wording was, but it was an assumption that it was some big company that's got no ethics. And I replied and said, nope, just me here. Yeah.
I don't know how anybody could see a photo of you and be angry at you. You look like such a nice person. If I saw your photo,
I'm a nice person.
Yeah, no, I absolutely know. But you look like a nice person before you get to know you as well. So that's a thing you have going for you, which is cool.
We're very good at removing the personhood of people on the other end of a screen, aren't we?
So Loopy Pro, it wasn't an overnight thing, yeah? This is a long period of time to make this. If I am correct, this is what, 7 years in development?
7 years. I mean, it's not so. I haven't been working solidly on it for 7 years because I had to do some Audiobus stuff along the way, and I had a little boy, and doing day off day on day off parenting, so that takes quite a lot of time as well. So I think if I were a normal person working doing this as a job and didn't have all these other bits, I probably would have knocked it off in about 2 years. But it's still not nothing though. It's it's a big project. It's taken a lot.
Absolutely, because and here it is on the screen. I've done a show.
5 stars. That's better.
Absolutely. And look, if I could give it more, I absolutely would. Again, like I said at the beginning of the show, Audiobus changed the game. This is gonna change the game. It's only just dropped, and I think 2022, and we're seeing a lot of videos on YouTube of people creating with this already. But
there's some amazing stuff that people are doing with it. I love it.
Yeah, and like somebody wrote in the chat earlier, we're only seeing, with all these videos that are out so far, very, very small potential of what can be done. And already it's like, oh my God, it's unbelievable the potential that is coming for 2022, because it is more than just a looper. It's interesting, I'm glad in the title of the App Store it says Loopy Pro Looper Door Sampler, because I feel like that
was a bit of throwing the hat over the wall, putting that in. The way the kids throw their hat over the wall, so they have no choice but to climb it and jump over the other side, right. Like daring yourself.
Because it's more than a looper. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
How would you, if I gave you, here's a minute to describe Loopy Pro to your potential customers, how would you, in that 1 minute, describe what Loopy Pro is?
The elevator pitch. Yeah. You know what? I never actually worked at an elevator pitch. I'm a ridiculous businessman.
Well, mine sucked. When I worked at American Express, I'd practiced, and then one day the CEO from America had come to Australia, and I was in the elevator with Ken Chenault, and I stood there and just went, I make music. Whoa! I don't think I'll go into work tomorrow.
Perfect. It's about as much as I could manage. Yeah, no, Loopy Pro, rather than describing it, I find the way is to talk about its history more, which is how it came about is from having a looper and then having this amazing community of people use it, and then using all of their creative ideas to sort of make something even better. There's this sort of really intense feedback effect between my own work and the people that use it and that I talk with. And so it's something that I wanted to create where rather than saying, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to add that feature, I'm saying, yes, I will add it. And that's really hard to do, because if you just add one feature after another, it ends up being feature soup. It's not usable. But I sat down and took a very, very, very large amount of time designing it and figuring out how to make it a bit like Lego, like it's sort of modular, so that on its own you can go as deep as you want, but you can also, you can just enjoy, here's some nice colorful loops and you can tap them and they make nice sounds. But you can then go in and you can just build out, you can basically make your own apps with it almost, with the widget stuff. And the idea is to have something that is pleasant and friendly, but infinitely deep. And that's what I'm working on. It will be a lifetime's work. This is my career from here on out.
I think that's the really exciting part about it too. And we'll get to the pricing stuff and that, because I had a big rant on this. I know Jacob Hack had a big rant on this, because unfortunately we felt like we had to, because people. SciFN, one of the moderators here, has asked the question: given the timescale in creating Loopy Pro, were there many obstacles with each new iOS version?
No, there weren't, because I didn't have to worry about making everything work perfectly each time. And the final beta testing was an epic job, and it was probably 6 months with an increasingly large cohort of beta testers, and that was as hard as I've ever worked in my life. It was ridiculous. So that was hard right at the end, but I didn't have to worry about that along the way. It was just, it's just that final bit. And here on out, I'm sure it's going to be a merry ride with each new iOS version. But during the development, it was pretty relaxed,
That is good to know. So let's talk about the pricing structure. I see Deep Gravity's asked a question here. I don't know if this is... Do you have a cousin named Kirsten? Bizarre question. No. What about you, Deep Gravity? Do you have a cousin named Kirsten? Sorry.
I'd like to know if you have a second cousin named Brian.
I think I do. I need to join one of those those history things and find out my bloodline and find who's in my family. I want to talk about prices, because back in the day there was this thing which many people might not remember called the race to the bottom, where apps started coming out for free, and the devaluation of apps. When I first jumped onto iOS, I was floored that there were so many free things that I could just start with. Because, hey, I just dumped $1,000 on a phone. I certainly couldn't afford any apps. And now we're starting to see prices. We've got multiple structures of payments. You've got subscriptions, which people hate. They absolutely loathe. I hate them.
Probably rightly so,
yeah,
really.
And they're annoying. But they don't only... This is the thing. People get really upset about on iOS, in my opinion, but they affect everything. PC things, even what I use to stream each day, Restream, I have to pay, a subscription. They affect all of us. It's not only iOS.
Photoshop.
So I would love a system where you could actually create a wallet for subscriptions and make them all get paid on the same day. You could organize them to go out on the same day. That would be so cool. Nobody's going to do it. But you have gone the route with this, which I think is the future. And where you release the app for free and people get a 7-day trial to test it out. And then from there, they decide if they would like to go ahead and purchase it. Then once they purchase it, they get updates totally for the next year. going forward. And once the year is up, you will charge a lower amount than the initial fee to get the next year's features as well as
Yes,
updates.
but you keep what you
Exactly.
buy forever. Unlike subscriptions, where if you let the subscription lapse, it's like you've just thrown all that money in the bin. It's like rent, you know? I think it's a very unkind business model.
It's interesting how people have got to this point too, that they just think, I just keep updating it forever. And, you know, people have got to remember that developers need to eat food or they die.
We do. Yes, more than just ramen.
And does not live on ramen alone.
I'm sure some do, but
yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. And it's partly that business model that pay once and then never again and expect updates for life. That is why there are so many great music apps on iOS that have stagnated, that haven't been able to be updated to support audio units or even the latest version of iOS, because when the money runs out, the money runs out. You don't have, you can't continue updating that way. And so I think it does everyone a disservice having a business model that is not sustainable, because it means that the apps that you love, they go away, or they stagnate and they become, unusable over time. So yeah, that the idea with this one is that that's not the case, that I can actually keep on working on this and making it better and better and better over the years. And yeah.
I think before I go to this question here from Jason Soderlund, what's really cool is we know your track record with Audiobus, right? Where, you'll see maybe a developer come along, first app, and they promise the world, and not everybody can deliver the world, yeah? And because the world's not perfect. But because you have such a great track record of continuing to work on apps, I feel absolutely confident 150% knowing that the money I've paid is going to get to the end of the year and you're going to have these features, because you've even said here, I've seen you say many other places, this is your lifelong project down. This is your thing. This is the Pro Tools of these things have been around for years. The Photoshops, this is your Photoshop. I feel really excited about what's coming. So there is a question here from Jason, which says, any plans for a control surface API scripting system?
Possibly. There have been some ideas thrown around that begin to go towards that. For example, having in the text widgets, the labels, having some particular codes that you can put in that will insert placeholders like current tempo or master length or whatever. That's an initial step towards that. Yeah, possibly. I mean, with this project, I think probably everything will end up in there eventually, if it can be added in a way that's nice and that doesn't make it unusable. But it's just a matter of time. Something I'm thinking of doing is exposing my to-do list via a website and allowing people to sort of put their preferences in terms of priority and help me decide what to make first. Because my roadmap is this long. It's epic. There's only a tiny fraction of it on the Loopy Pro manual at the bottom, just the major ideas. But the number of things that I already know that I want to add in is colossal. So yeah, I think I'm probably going to need a bit of help prioritizing.
There's plenty of us who are going to throw the help your way.
Yeah,
I think you're safe there.
I know. I'm really looking forward to getting it up and seeing what people say. Because often, as a developer, especially if you're one of those scumbags like me who doesn't use what you make,
self-deprecating now.
Yeah, it can be hard to know where the strengths of your platform lie, because it's you're in it, right? You can't see it. You can't see the wood for the trees for the wood, something. And so I think I really appreciate that kind of input. So that'll be coming, a roadmap with a way that you can sort of help prioritize stuff, vote for items and stuff.
Look, and it's been a really tough couple of years for everybody, and I'm going to bring this up. I don't like to use the C word. I like to call it the inconvenience, because it has been incredibly inconvenient on so many levels, so much so people have died from that, and that's very inconvenient. But for people like creators, it's been, and I hate saying it all the time, it's helped a lot of people who are creative actually explode and find the creativity they may not have been able to reach because of the time to breathe in a time when breathing on each other was actually really dangerous. Irony is a strange thing. How was the wrapping up the development through the inconvenience for you, and how did you keep focused with your mental health and stuff like that? Because I know a lot of us, even though we had the space, mental health, it took a hit for a lot of people.
Yeah. We're really lucky where we live. We have, quite a lot of space. We live in a really nice part of the world. I can't imagine what this would have been like living in a little apartment in the city. It sounds utterly intolerable. I think I would be rioting on the streets. But here, honestly, it made, I'm amazed to say, fairly little difference. I think it was, I'm really concerned about the effect on Sage, my little boy, who missed out on, the best part of 2 years of pretty formative kinder and socialization. And he's got I think that's probably true of a whole lot of kids who've got a lot of catching up to do in, being around other people. It's probably true of a lot of the adults too. So on that side of things, I think there's a lot of concern. But personally speaking, I work here. So it made not very much difference to my life, apart from not having Granny and Granddad around to take care of the little one and give me a bit of extra work time. Yeah, but no, look, I'm really, really lucky in this, much more than most. Yeah.
Well, oh my God, you've actually done something which is really hard to do. Pete Johns from Studio Live Today has written here, I've just downloaded Loopy. That's a big step for me. It is. Pete's a creature of habit. He focuses on GarageBand on his channel, and it's so hard to get him to try something new.
Wow. Well, thanks, Pete.
Nice one.
I hope it doesn't let you down. Pressure's on now.
Need to wait for the end of the interview to take the tour. And that's another amazing thing. Speaking of that, I love the tour on the app. It is so beautiful. I walked away from it knowing I don't need to open the manual because it's something that I hate doing because I want to just tool around with it.
I never read manuals.
And it was a beautiful little trip. I love those kind of apps that take you on a little journey and give you a little experience. Rim de Gere is one of those apps that did that for me too this year, with this little story about these little aliens that have met these robots. And then by the time you start playing with the app, there's a backstory. There's something to understand. And you feel like...
that sounds nice. I want that.
It's beautiful. I did a show on it and I fully did the whole story at the beginning and showed the little creatures who go to the moon. They're harvesting these rocks and it's fucking awesome. I love it.
I want to redo the tour now.
Your tour is fantastic. I think there's a question here from Ed Zielinski too. Would a vulnerability that is a security issue be fixed, or would that require a purchase too? Would plan to pay if I use those.
Yeah, bug fixes and and compatibility upgrades, which is of course a big deal with iOS, will be there for the life of the app. That's one of the things that I realized I could do as part of this business model, because the app itself, like one of the ideas and one of the things that I think some people are advocating for is to release a new app every year, so a completely separate app, completely new download, and that was kind of my fallback plan before I realized that I could do it via in-app purchases and stuff and some underlying structure. But what this allows me to do is, because it's the same app, it will get updated for the entire life of the app, and all of the bug fixes will benefit everybody. So yeah, it will continue to be updated for as long as I'm working, which I'm happy to say. Yeah, and it's just the new features which will, there'll be a little box somewhere in a menu somewhere that shows you what you can unlock if you decide at some point to upgrade whenever you like. And of course, you cannot upgrade and you'll just keep the stuff that was in there at the time that you bought the app, or you can wait a few years and then upgrade it and you'll get everything up to that point. So it's very flexible,
I did a show yesterday on an app called, Sidecar. And what it does is it adds your QWERTY keyboard, turns it into a MIDI controller. And I was so blown away to see that it actually works in Loopy really, really well.
Nice.
I think there it is. I've just triggered a note. I don't think can I show it here? Yeah, so I can play this in Loopy with my Apple Magic keyboard. It is so cool. Everything seems to work seamlessly with Loopy. And look, I'm going to let you know because we're getting to the end of the show. I have set myself a challenge. It won't be this week, but it will be the following week. I love to do these week-long shows where I have a band called Kindercore, amongst many of my 7 bands that I'm in. The first Kindercore song I released, I did in Gadget 2, and I'd never used Gadget 2 before, so it was a week of making it. My next Kindercore song will be recorded over a week using Loopy, so that's coming up in not this week, the week after. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of mistakes because when I did my show on it, what I really loved about it was the ability to be able to use a door, the sequencer like a door. I think that's what pulled me into it. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think that was a critical component that opens it up. Yeah.
So what are some of the, I don't know, give us the top 5 off the top of your head features that you see being critical things coming in the future for Loopy?
Probably the very first one in terms of really big ones is MIDI looping, so that you'll be able to have, you can have audio sources in Loopy right now. You'll be able to have MIDI sources and they'll just record to a clip, just the way that audio does. And they'll drive a audio unit sequencer, and I'll add some built-in sequencer things too, including the ability to take a one shot and spread it across a keyboard, and pitch it up and down and stuff. So you'll be able to play that as a synth. That's going to be a really, really big one, and that will make it a lot more DAW-ish. The other thing is, of course, automation within the sequencer. So you'll be able to have curves that can adjust effect parameters and mixing parameters and things, and also in terms of the automation of live performances that the sequencer can already do. You can set up a sequence and then clear out all of the tracks and then arm them and then just hit go, and it will record them as you go, so that you can actually do a live looping performance and have it all automated. Along with that will be the ability to have actions on the timeline, so that you can have, at bar 4, turn on an effect, or send out a MIDI message to some external hardware to trigger something, or that will, I think, really open it up for a lot more kind of DAW style use. That'll be really good. Smaller ones that are coming are like inter-app audio support, and probably Audiobus too. I hear this thing called Audiobus. It's probably, I might consider supporting it. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, and things like multiple input and output channels when you're using it as an audio unit, just that kind of, those sort of workflow improvements. Those are big ones that are coming too. Geez, I can't remember any others off the top of my head right now. I mean, there are lots. Yeah. One that I'm doing in pretty short order is cross-project transitions, which will be kind of fun, where you load another project and it loads in parallel, and then you can either set it to do something like play, the last playing loops up until the end and then switch over to the new ones, or you could do a crossfade, or stop the audio but keep all of the effect decays going until they trail off and then switch. Ways to sort of transition between projects in a set. I think that's going to be pretty cool.
Wow. See, when I did my show, because whenever I do a show, I want to do something that you don't expect you can do with it. And I tried to do a metal song in Loopy, which I think I have the project here.
It's a perfect partnership.
Yeah, because everyone else is going doing all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm like, no. We are doing metal.
There'll be no beatboxing here.
And for my band Kindercore, it is it is quite kind of metal, synthy, Faith No More-y kind of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to pushing that challenge.
That's great.
I think there's a couple more questions here. What have we got? Where did I see? Question for anyone. Where this is a perfect question, and I know there's a couple of places you can send people to. For anyone, where is the place to find how to get the most out of Loopy Pro? YouTube, Twitch, forum. You have a Discord happening too now, don't you?
Indeed, loopypro.com/discord is the invite link. And that's probably what I'm generally going to be using as the sort of center of the community. Because it was launched around Christmas and I wanted to take a bit of time off and stuff, there's a bit of sort of fragmentation, you could say, of the community, because I sort of didn't really clamp down and steer it. So there are quite a few places. There's, the Audiobus Forum, there's a bit of stuff. There's a Loopy Forum, there's a bit of stuff. There's a Facebook group, there's the Discord, and there's the original Slack group, which the testers were part of. I intend to focus on the Discord because I think it's probably the best platform. I really enjoy the immediacy of having a live chat kind of a thing, so that you can have back and forth, which is I find a lot more tricky in a forum because you sort of have to sit there and reload, and it's not quite as immediate. So I quite enjoyed that with the Slack group, and I think Discord is probably the natural progression from that, and it lets you do threading and stuff too, which is nice. But yes, there's also that Facebook group as well, which is fine. I'll keep on checking that too. But there are lots of places to get help. If you look in Loopy itself, Loopy Pro itself, in the menu, there's a little help thing, and that links to a few bits and pieces, including a list of YouTube tutorials, which I'm continually adding to. But there's also a manual now, which I'm about probably 90% through writing. There's a few sections in there saying coming soon still, but I think the really important stuff is all in there. It's bloody epic. It was like writing a book.
Shit.
It's so big. It's so big.
But I don't want to read. I'll just use YouTube.
You don't have to. I wouldn't be reading it. But some people like manuals, so there's a manual too.
Yeah, I'm actually going to read it. You
can have fun with that. I
definitely am going to read it because I do have another show planned for this week where I want to talk about all the hidden gestures that there are, because the more I've been playing with it over the last couple of weeks, the more gestures I keep finding. Like the one that I love so much is the one where you can actually spin around the loop and line it.
Yeah, the twist.
Oh my God. Virtual hard-on from that. It was
yeah, I love it. You can also draw a circle around the track, and it will bring up a little mixer, so a little fader. It takes a little bit of practice because it needs to not interfere with other gestures. That's always the tricky thing. But yeah, if you draw a circle around one of the loops, you get a little fader that comes up. There you go. There's the track twisting.
So I'm turning it with my hand. If I draw a circle, no, that didn't work.
Let's see if you can get it.
I should do it with my pencil. Will that work?
Yeah, pencil would work. There you go. Oh,
try again. Come on.
Takes practice.
I'm gonna go.
But once you get it, it's kind of fun way to quickly adjust a mix.
I'm just no good.
Need to do some more practice, friend.
My drawing's not so good. I give up. Live streaming, it's terrible stuff.
Yeah. It is a tricky gesture.
But there are so many beautiful things in there. This app is just incredible. And
thank you.
Yeah, it's absolutely worth the wait. I was on the beta. You kindly allowed me to go onto the beta when I think it was locked down. So thank you for that. And I had a lot of fun playing with it beforehand. So by the time it came out, I already knew what I was doing. That was very helpful. What's it been like seeing some of the reactions around the world to people doing this? It must be pleasing.
Mind blowing. When you work on a project for 7 years, you don't know what you have anymore. Like it's just this thing that I made. I don't know if it's any good. And so it's been just fluffy. I'm delighted. I'm so thrilled that people like it and that they can see in it what my original vision was. That it looks like it sort of has a chance of living up to that. It's been unreal. I'm so happy.
I think to me, and Mr. Gumby has said here, can I just add another congratulations to Michael on a wonderful app?
Thank you.
I think one of the things that really has blown me away is what excited me firstly about iOS when I got into it was those apps that made use of the touch interface and the experience with iPad. And Doors have yet to be able to capture that. There's been a lot of fantastic
they're
apps.
more like desktop apps, aren't they?
Even GarageBand and we've got Gadget and all these stuff. And they're all fantastic. And, they all have their pros and cons, like everything, But this is the first door loop sequencer, whatever you want to call it. It's the jack of all trades that actually is using the touch interface and the whole experience of the iPad. That's what is the killer feature for me. And it just, everything else is like sugar on top.
Yeah, it's fun. I kind of that was one of the really important things along the way. I mean, it's part of what informed Loopy, the original Loopy too, which is just that it's got to be something that you want to touch and play with. It's got there's some visual effects in there, like blooms and things that are kind of fun. I actually discovered some old videos that I made. I wonder if I can. I wonder if you'll be able to see it on this screen if I quickly turn on. I discovered some old videos that were little screencasts that I recorded along the way while I was developing. Oh no, my Mac's here, so I can't connect it and I can't show you. I'm going to post them later on anyway. Some old screencasts showing some of the visual effects and things that I had along the way, and they were really cool. They're like sort of 3D rooms, and and one of the features of the UI, which I actually turned off prior to launch, was that it uses the accelerometer in the phone, and if you turn it on the iPad, if you turn it, it makes it look like it has depth, and so there's these little the waveform is slightly in front of the loop, and then there's these little sort of lines that go around when you're playing. The lines are all at different depths, so when you move the device, it makes it look like you're sort of looking at a 3D object. It was really cool, but I decided it was probably a little bit too much. But yeah, that's along the way, it was always a priority to make it feel really fun and interesting and kind of like you're living in the future a bit. One of my big inspirations was the UI from one of the latest Marvel films. It was all spirally effects, neon colors, and dialed back a long way since then.
So Loopy's officially a part of the Marvel universe now.
That's right, aren't we all?
Thank you, Ed Zielinski, for the kind super chat. That's very generous of you. Thank you so much. I want to hit you up the last couple of questions. What are some, I don't know, just a few apps that you like using from the App Store from other developers?
Yeah, this is a tricky one because, like I said, I don't really.
It doesn't have to be music.
I don't really make music with it all, but I really. Oh, okay. Well, look, I still really adore FAC, the whole FAC suite. I think they're amazing effects. They're really cool, and I use them sort of in testing and stuff because they sound so good. Fred's such a champion, They're such good apps. That's the music sphere.
Yeah, it makes great apps. They're so solid too, and they're very specific, and they never let you down.
Yeah, that transient designer is that's really cool. Yeah, DubFX, who's the guy that very kindly introduced Loopy, that one of those videos, he raves about them too. He's really excited about them. He's converting his entire live rig to using Loopy Pro, with some of those audio units chucked in, and he's very excited about FAC stuff. Yeah. I don't know what other apps,
If there's none, let's not worry. That's good enough.
Yeah. I mean, there are lots. I just can't bring any to mind.
It's crazy. Like I look at my iPad every day, sit here and do a show, and sit there scrolling like this, going, "My Lord, look at that! My iPad is just a sea of apps. Kill me, please."
Wow, that's amazing.
And I've said this on the channel before. I've been buying apps since probably 2010. About 2010. I don't even want to know how many I've purchased. I know it's over 10,000 that are in my list.
You're supporting a whole ecosystem of developers.
Of course. And
good for you.
You guys are fantastic. It's one of the reasons I wanted to start this show, to show off the amazing work that developers do, because I wouldn't be making music without you guys, you know. So it's really important to have you on the show and hear your stories.
We wouldn't be making apps without you guys. So it's a nice symbiosis. That's something that's really stood out, especially during the last sort of 6 months of working on Loopy Pro and having just really, really solid conversations with people on the testing Slack and elsewhere. And there's this just amazing symbiosis between this community of amazing musicians and Loopy and myself, and being able to kind of work a bit like a hive mind, you know, coming up with these amazing ideas together. And it's great that I can make this stuff that you know people get value out of and can make part of their workflow. But in return, my God, the amount of brains out there and the amount of ideas, and it just makes everything that I do so much better. So it's it's unreal. It's such a great community to be a part of, you know.
Of course, Audible Video would write this. I want Michael to play the concertina for us. When I had Jordan Rudess on the show, he actually got up and he pulled out his iPad. Of course he did, and he played GeoShred for us. He did it. It was so cool.
That's great.
I was sitting here like I'm a big fan of Dream Theater because I'm a metalhead, you know, and just sitting there watching Jordan Rudess playing GeoShred on my interview. I was just going, I can't put the camera on myself. Like, this is the closest to sex on the internet I'm getting, like musical sex. It was so cool.
Sorry, it's not within arm's reach. I'm not doing it for you.
All right, I'm going to ask the question that I ask you did mention too that you. So, is there something else? I think I heard you say that there is something else possibly in the works alongside Loopy, and I'm not asking you to disclose or anything like that.
Sign here. In terms of another app, I don't think so. You know, I'm still on the fence about what I'm going to do with Samplebot.
Yep.
I think there's an argument to be made for just focusing on Loopy Pro, because Loopy Pro can do all of the things that Samplebot can do, right? And a lot more. So I think rather than sort of diluting my efforts across two, then it might just be more sensible to focus on Loopy Pro. But look, Loopy Pro is where I'm going to be spending all of my time, hopefully for the rest of my career. You know, I don't plan to release other apps. I plan to deepen Loopy Pro and make it something that is indispensable to more and more people, ideally. And that's going to be me from here on out. So don't expect any new app launches for the next 10 years at least.
Normally I would be upset about that, but in this case, I'm really excited to hear that. And I think everybody else should take heed there and be really excited. If you're sitting on the fence about grabbing this app, get off the fence. You'll hurt your butt sitting on it too long. And start creating some stuff, because this is a perfect opportunity to step outside of your structured doors and try something really, really fun and interesting.
And it's only going to get better from here on out too.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's what's really exciting about it. Just seeing what people are already doing with it and knowing what's to come is super exciting. I ask everybody this question at the end of every show, but first I will mention, folks, I have all of Michael's links in the description, so go ahead and do all the clicking, as Jacob Hack would say. Go out there and finger all your stuff. Go and do that and finger all of his links and join the Discord and get involved, because it's absolutely worth your time. I also want to thank DistroKid for sponsoring today's interview. Thank you so much, guys, at DistroKid. Remember, folks, $19.99 US yearly entry line fee, and you get to release as much music as you like from your sessions with Loopy Pro. That's going to be super exciting. I can't wait to see, because I play music here on the community. Michael from all these groups. Pete Johns has a YML show where he plays people's music, made iOS, and so many other channels. It's going to be really exciting to see people releasing music that is on the Apple Music Store and Spotify that is made in Loopy Pro. I can't wait to see that as well. That's super cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
So make sure you use DistroKid to do it. And there's my link, which is distrokid.com/VIP/Jade Starr, and you'll get 7% off. There you go. Thank you, Distro Kid. So the last question I ask everyone, it is a loaded question. There's no wrong answer.
Feel my
If
fear.
somebody was considering becoming creative, when do you think would be the best time for them to do it?
Now.
No.
Just now. There's never any point waiting. There's always something better around the corner. You just start. You just have to start,
Yeah. The tools are there, folks. If you've got a phone in your pocket, you've got an iPad, you've got the technology that flew people to the moon all those years ago in your pocket. Do it, yeah?
And even without it, you know what? Limitations make us creative.
Absolutely, yeah.
Look at what the Beatles did with, technology that makes us giggle.
Yeah, we are so lucky. We are so lucky right now. And I think we focus as a species so much on the negative. And instead of, when I used to go to work, I'll just finish this. I used to sit on the train and watch people with their devices just scrolling. And I'd be sitting there working on a song on my device and just feel so bad for these people going, if only you knew what you could do with this thing. But you know what? No point feeling sorry for them. They're getting enjoyment from that. And that's all that matters. Yeah.
Each their own. Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me today here on the show.
Thank you. It's been fun.
I'm so glad. So awesome to know that you're an Aussie as well. Aussie. We are dominating.
Oi, oi, oi.
And yeah.
It's fun to talk to someone in the same time zone too. It's very
I'm sorry
unusual.
it's so early in the morning.
Oh, it's fine. My little one comes in and wakes us up at 6:30 or 6 anyway, so
You know, it was interesting when your kid was banging on the door. That's what my cat does to my door while I'm doing the show. Except it's a lot more annoying.
It's funny the parallels between pet ownership and child ownership. Can't say child ownership, can I?
Oh my God.
It's called parenthood, that's right.
No, go with it. I'm down with that. I'll stick with that for myself.
Yeah.
Child ownership. Until you let them go.
We've got
but
some friends who
you never stop owning them once you let them go. So,
that's true. Yeah, deep down, he needs to know,
absolutely.
who holds the strings. Yeah, we've got some friends who got a dog recently, and it's crazy, just the parallels. Here he goes again.
Perfect timing. So thank you so much. Look,
Yeah.
I wish you all the best with Loopy Pro. I'm going to be doing it. I'll let you know when I'm
you.
doing my shows. And I'm sure so many people are going to be using this. So yeah, all the best for 2022. And thank you so much for all you have done and are going to do in the future.
Thank you, Jade. You're very kind.
If you just want to hang on the line so I can just say goodbye to you, we'll do the title credits and go out, and then I'll just say goodbye offline. So I'll see you in a minute, yeah? Thank you, everybody in the chat. And if you're watching on the replay, remember, hit the like on the way out. Subscribe if you haven't. It helps me, helps me to help you. Thank you, I Have an Idea, for the kind super chat as we go out. Let me bring that up on the screen quickly. You guys rock. You make my job so much easier each day for supporting me. I love you all. And I'll see you on the next one where I don't know what's happening. So good luck. Take it easy. And let me just cue the music because I'm a bit behind. I've been too into this interview. And we'll see you again soon. Remember, do the things that make you happy. Mistakes make us better. And remember, we all will rise together. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And I've got to get my screen, don't I? That would help. I'm really off my game today. Bye.